You'd think the US would be cheering on other nations climbing the ladder of success, right? But in 2025, it seems like being too successful might just earn you some side eyes from Uncle Sam. Whether it's dominating global tech, outpacing the US in education, or flexing economic muscles in new markets. Some countries are getting a little too good at the game and Washington's not loving it. Of course, the US won't officially admit to disliking anyone for their accomplishments. But actions speak louder than words, from sanctions to trade blocs to cold diplomatic shoulders. Today on Globe Discoveries, we're counting down the 10 countries America kinda hates right now. Not because they're enemies, but because they're thriving. Number 10. Vietnam. Vietnam's rise from post-war devastation to economic powerhouse has been nothing short of remarkable, and in 2025, it's making Washington uncomfortable. With a booming tech manufacturing sector, closer trade ties with both China and the EU, and record GDP growth hovering around 7.1%, Vietnam is proving it doesn't need to play by American rules to succeed. And that's exactly the kind of independence the US finds a little threatening. American companies are feeling the pressure. Vietnam is now the second largest exporter of electronics in Southeast Asia, outpacing traditional US allies like Malaysia and the Philippines. Apple, Samsung, and Intel have all increased their Vietnamese operations, often at the expense of American jobs. Politically, Vietnam is walking a tightrope between East and West and doing it flawlessly. Despite being a communist state, it's managed to woo both Beijing and Brussels while keeping Washington at arm's length. That balancing act is frustrating for U.S. diplomats who prefer clearer allegiances. In 2024, Vietnam declined to support a U.S.-backed resolution at the UN, instead joining a coalition of non-aligned innovators focused on digital sovereignty. It's a move that signals Vietnam isn't just growing, it's leading. And when a small nation starts outshining you on your own turf, a little resentment is almost inevitable. The truth is, America doesn't hate Vietnam, but it's definitely watching nervously. Because in 2025, Vietnam isn't just catching up, it's sprinting ahead in key sectors that once belonged to the U.S. Number 9. United Arab Emirates UAE. The UAE has gone from desert sands to skyscraper-laden economic marvel, and in 2025, it's shining a little too bright for America's liking. Dubai and Abu Dhabi have become global hubs for finance, tourism, and AI development, rivaling major U.S. cities in both luxury and innovation. And while Washington officially praises the progress, behind the scenes, the tone is much cooler. One major point of friction: the UAE's growing relationship with China. From Huawei-powered smart cities to military tech collaborations, the Emirates are showing they don't need U.S. approval to build the future. Add to that a booming sovereign wealth fund, now one of the largest in the world, and America has reason to worry. In 2025, the UAE's GDP hit $600 billion, and its non-oil economy is growing faster than ever. The fact that they're doing it while keeping their politics tightly controlled only deepens Washington's suspicion. The Emirates are also attracting top-tier talent from around the globe, including many Americans seeking lower taxes and futuristic lifestyles. And while that sounds like harmless migration, it chips away at the U.S.'s long-held brain gain advantage. The UAE isn't an enemy, but it's undeniably winning at a game America thought it had mastered. And that success makes it harder for Washington to ignore just how quickly the world is changing. Number 8. Switzerland. Switzerland has long been neutral, but in 2025, it's also globally dominant in ways that make the U.S. feel a little insecure. From finance to biotech to precision manufacturing, the Swiss continue to lead without loud diplomacy or military bravado. And that quiet excellence is exactly what irks a country used to being center stage. In the post-COVID world, Switzerland's health system has been ranked #1 for efficiency and access, while the U.S. continues to struggle with soaring costs and coverage gaps. Meanwhile, Swiss universities are topping global innovation indexes, attracting top minds who might have otherwise studied in the U.S. Then there's finance. Despite mounting pressure from the U.S. to open up its banking system further, Switzerland is doubling down on financial privacy, and global investors are responding. In 2025, Swiss banks saw an 18% rise in foreign deposits, while Wall Street faced regulatory gridlock and digital currency confusion. Culturally, Switzerland doesn't seek global dominance, it just quietly sets standards. Whether it's sustainability, infrastructure, or governance, the Swiss model is winning hearts in places Washington once had a firm grip. So while America isn't waging war against fondue and watches, it's definitely feeling the heat from Switzerland's relentless perfection. And that's enough to make this alpine nation a quiet rival in Washington's eyes. Number 7. Singapore. Tiny but mighty, Singapore continues to defy expectations. And in 2025, its overachievement is starting to rub America the wrong way. With a population smaller than New York City, Singapore is punching way above its weight in global finance, education, and cybersecurity. While Washington publicly calls it a partner, it's clear there's a tinge of envy underneath the praise. This year, Singapore's GDP per capita crossed $90,000, making it one of the richest nations on Earth, far ahead of the U.S. average. At the same time, the island city-state ranked #1 in global education for the sixth consecutive year, while American schools continue to grapple with inequality and declining math scores. That success hits a nerve, especially when tech leaders start praising Singapore's policies over Washington's. The U.S. has also been uneasy about Singapore's diplomatic strategy. The country maintains close ties with both China and the U.S., refusing to take sides in key geopolitical disputes. It's a kind of balance that undermines America's binary approach to foreign relations. Singapore's innovation-friendly tax policies have lured dozens of American startups and hedge funds to relocate. And with Singapore Airlines dominating global aviation rankings, even the skies seem to favor this Southeast Asian powerhouse. America doesn't hate Singapore, but it's definitely frustrated that the world's perfect city keeps outshining it on nearly every metric. Number 6. Germany. Germany, the industrial engine of Europe, continues to be a thorn in America's competitive pride in 2025. While the two remain NATO allies, Germany's quiet dominance in engineering, renewable energy, and global exports often leaves the U.S. trailing behind. And with Berlin pushing for more EU independence from Washington, tensions are rising. In 2025, Germany surpassed the U.S. in electric vehicle infrastructure per capita and rolled out a nationwide hydrogen energy grid, years ahead of American timelines. Meanwhile, German automakers like BMW and Volkswagen are outselling U.S. counterparts in international markets, including parts of Asia once dominated by Ford and GM. Financially, Germany is also asserting itself. The European Central Bank, heavily influenced by Berlin, has been promoting the digital euro as an alternative to the dollar. And in trade talks, German diplomats have been more vocal about reducing reliance on American tech and defense systems. On the cultural front, Germany's work-life balance, universal healthcare, and green cities are increasingly viewed as models for success, especially by American millennials and Gen Z. That admiration often comes with criticism of the U.S. status quo, adding salt to the wound. So while America may not openly bash Berlin, the subtle rivalry is real. Because in 2025, Germany isn't just surviving without U.S. help. It's setting the standard for what a modern industrial power looks like. Number 5. Israel. Despite being one of America's closest allies, Israel's tech dominance is beginning to make even Washington squirm. In 2025, the country's startup ecosystem continues to outpace Silicon Valley in areas like cybersecurity, AI, and medical technology. And while U.S. officials still call the relationship ironclad, the undercurrent of competition is hard to ignore. This year, Tel Aviv was ranked the #1 global city for deep tech innovation, overtaking San Francisco for the first time. Israel's defense tech exports also hit record highs, with contracts in Europe, Asia, and Latin America, sometimes beating out American firms. The fact that a country the size of New Jersey is running laps around global tech giants isn't sitting well with D.C. Adding to the tension is Israel's growing autonomy. While it still receives U.S. military aid, it's increasingly making independent decisions on trade, energy, and regional diplomacy. Washington doesn't like surprises, especially from its friends. Israel's quiet influence in global policy circles is growing, too. Its ambassadors are leading major international committees on cybersecurity and AI ethics, areas the U.S. once dominated. The balance of power is shifting, and not everyone in Washington is cheering. At the surface, America praises Israel's success. But underneath, it's clear, being too good, even as a friend, can get you labeled as a rival. Number 4. Qatar. Qatar might be small, but in 2025, it's proving that wealth, diplomacy, and global soft power don't require military might. Thanks to its natural gas empire, state-owned media networks, and financial investments around the globe, Qatar has become a quiet force Washington can't ignore. and doesn't always like. Qatar's sovereign wealth fund, now valued at over $500 billion, owns prime real estate, sports franchises, and tech stakes in nearly every major Western economy, including the U.S. While this might sound like collaboration, it often translates into influence Washington can't control. In global diplomacy, Qatar has become the go-to mediator for Middle East conflicts, frequently stepping into roles once filled by the U.S. From hosting ceasefire talks to brokering hostage releases, Doha is winning trust on both sides of political divides, and that independent reputation is starting to overshadow American diplomacy. Al Jazeera, Qatar's flagship media outlet, continues to challenge U.S. narratives on everything from foreign policy to social justice. Its global reach and credibility, especially in the global south, make it a powerful tool that Washington often sees as a thorn in its side. Qatar's success isn't just economic, it's strategic. And in 2025, it's becoming increasingly clear that America respects Qatar's rise, but doesn't quite like how effortlessly it's pulling it off. Number 3. South Korea. South Korea has become the tech titan America didn't see coming, and in 2025, its relentless innovation is turning admiration into unease. While Washington still considers Seoul a key ally, the U.S. is increasingly being outpaced in everything from microchips to pop culture. And when the student starts outshining the teacher, tensions naturally follow. This year, Samsung overtook Apple in global smartphone market share for the first time since 2011. Meanwhile, Korean chipmaker SK Hynix is leading the charge in advanced memory tech, beating out American firms to supply AI components for global industries. It's not just competition, it's dominance. Culturally, the K-wave is more powerful than ever. Korean films, dramas, and music continue to dominate global platforms, with streaming services investing billions in Seoul rather than Hollywood. That cultural shift is cutting into one of America's most prized exports, soft power. What makes it even trickier is South Korea's growing independence in foreign policy. While still part of key U.S. alliances, Seoul is building closer ties with ASEAN, the EU, and even China, much to Washington's discomfort. America isn't pulling away from South Korea, but behind closed doors, it's starting to feel like the U.S. needs Seoul more than Seoul needs the U.S. Number 2. China. No surprise here, China is America's favorite rival to hate, especially in 2025. With the world's second largest economy and on track to become the first, China's rise is the single biggest geopolitical challenge to U.S. global dominance. And while the two powers are deeply interconnected, that doesn't stop them from competing tooth and nail across every industry. From green energy to infrastructure, China is setting the pace. In 2025, Beijing rolled out the world's largest electric vehicle network and completed major belt and road projects stretching from Africa to Europe. Meanwhile, U.S. projects have faced delays, political infighting, and budget overruns. On the tech front, Huawei and Tencent are leading AI development, while the U.S. scrambles to regulate its own tech giants. China's digital yuan is also gaining traction internationally, with several countries adopting it in trade settlements, a direct shot at dollar supremacy. But perhaps the biggest friction point is influence. China has invested heavily in media, education, and diplomacy in the global south, creating a new world order where the U.S. is no longer the default leader. Countries now have options, and more of them are choosing Beijing. America says it wants fair competition. But let's be honest, when your biggest rival keeps winning in your old lanes, it's hard not to call it something else entirely. Number 1. India. In 2025, India has become the breakout star of the global economy, and Washington is watching with a mix of awe and apprehension. With the tech industry rivaling Silicon Valley, a booming youth population, and the fastest-growing GDP among G20 nations, India is no longer just the world's largest democracy. It's a superpower in the making. And while the U.S. continues to call India a strategic partner, the jealousy is palpable. This year, India surpassed Germany to become the world's third-largest economy, with key growth driven by green energy, fintech, and advanced manufacturing. Indian startups are going global, and New Delhi is setting its own rules in trade, data governance, and foreign policy. Unlike past decades, India isn't waiting for U.S. validation. It's building its own global narrative. Culturally, Bollywood, cricket, and Indian influencers are dominating platforms that were once American strongholds. Meanwhile, Indian universities and research centers are climbing global rankings and attracting talent from Europe, Africa, and Southeast Asia. The country's self-confidence is resonating beyond borders. Politically, India has refused to pick sides in the US-China rivalry, voting independently at the UN and expanding ties with Russia, Iran, and ASEAN. Its push for digital sovereignty and data localization has clashed with American big tech interests. Yet it's holding firm. The US likes the idea of India as a counterweight to China, but not necessarily as an independent juggernaut. In short, India's rise is redefining what global success looks like, and it doesn't involve following the American playbook. That's not hate, per se, but it sure looks a lot like fear of being outpaced. There you have it, 10 countries that America may not openly despise, but certainly watches with growing unease. These nations aren't threats in the traditional sense, they're just succeeding too well on their own terms. And that kind of success challenges the US not just politically, but philosophically. When others start leading in innovation, diplomacy, or even culture, it forces America to rethink its own role in the world. Will it adapt, collaborate, or compete harder? Or will it cling to the past while the future keeps evolving elsewhere? Which country on this list do you think America actually respects the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Globe Discoveries for more bold breakdowns of global power dynamics. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.